So good morning and welcome. I think I'm looking for a thumbs up. Anyways, I'm not sure if I'm energized right now because of everybody that's gone before me and has really helped inspire me, or if it's because I feel like I'm wired for sound here. I've got things hanging off me that I totally don't understand, and I have 2 buttons to coordinate, so I'll do the best I can. So I've decided to title this talk, Creating a Climate of Safety for People Living with Dementia and for their Professional Caregivers. So although my presentation is really focused on people in residential care, I want you to think about how you can use the same information across the care continuum. Right? No. I don't think this one's on.
Isn't technology supposed to make everything easy?
Is it? Good. I think it was about me not holding it the right way up. No, it's still. So I can see what you need to see.
Could you do that?
Okay. So we're gonna.
So it's just this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Seems to be going.
All right, okay. So it's really important for me to look at my notes. So, you know, we all have needs that need to be met, so therefore I love to be in control. So it's really hard for me to give some of that up to other people, so bear with me here. So some of our intentions today is to explore the concept of responsive and self-protective behaviors through a person-centered lens. And so we're going to do that by looking at a video clip later on. So the other part of the intention, okay, is to recognize the interplay between life experiences, comorbidity, and interactions in a person with dementia. Okay? And so we're going to identify some ways to enhance the safety for people living in care and for their caregivers. So those are what I call my learning intentions of the day. So next I'm going to ask you for a show of hands. How many people think that a person with dementia is violent? So I want to see a show of hands. How many people think that a person with dementia is violent? Okay. So seeing none, either you're in agreement with the rest of us or you're just very shy and are afraid I'm going to single you out. But I think that that's the good news, because one of the things that we talked about at the beginning was showing you the video clip that talk a lot about violence and aggression. And I think that's one of the harder things that we've worked on. And I'm really happy because of the partnership, because we really want to look at the language, meet the worker's safety, but yet meet the needs of the individual and understanding them. So the other thing that we're going to look at is how many people think a person with dementia is intentionally aggressive? Okay, so I'm thinking I'm speaking to the converted here, right? So I see no hands going up. So again, either we're all on the same page or you're either very shy. So the next thing we need to look at is how many people here would like to be labeled violent or aggressive if you become cognitively impaired? Okay, so I think that that's a good place to start. Okay, I think that's the important part of this whole message. You know, I'm really happy with the partnership, like I said, but we have a lot of work to do around the language that we use. So what we look at here is that descriptive language changes our perception, and I think that that's what we work really hard to do, trying to change people's perception. So if I want to start with some Oh yeah, okay. So if I want to start with some old culture here, the starting point, and this is some work out of Wisconsin, and you'll notice that my presentation is a coalition of all the work that other people do. I'm just a facilitator, so what I do is I look for what's good. So we talk about control, problem behavior, react, correct, expect, victim, pacer, anxiety, and wandering. What's wrong with some of this language? So it's labeling, correct? So what about if we work at things like, coming to the destination of a new culture of language? So instead of controlling behavior, we talk about accommodating, Instead of problem behavior, we look at personal characteristics. This is really fun here. 2 hands. Okay. So react. Instead of react, what if we said respond? So what if we looked at connecting, accepting? So they're not a victim or a sufferer. I have trouble with that word, but rather an individual. So what about pacer? What if we see them as motivated? Instead of anxious, we see them as having eagerness. And then when we look at somebody that's wanderer or wandering, instead we think of the person as exploring, just like we do with children. We don't call them wanderers. They explore their environment, and we accept that. Okay? So we really have to reframe our perceptions and language. And so, as Liz pointed out earlier, responsive behaviours is a word that you'll hear over and over. And I think for me, somewhere back in probably 2005, I started to recognize this word in the literature, and it really made me take another look at it. Coming from a psychiatric background, we always talk about aggression. So it was really interesting to learn some new words and a new way of looking. And so it's really about that self-protective, defensive, or communicative behaviors that a person with dementia uses in response to real or perceived threats the person does not understand. And so it's a result of unmet needs. I guess you'd like me to... Okay, I thought I was getting good at this. All right, there we are. You're on the same page as me. So really, one of the things when I do some crisis prevention and intervention training, I really talk to the staff about how at the end of the day, the last thing to go is our primal brain. And what do we know the primal brain is for? It's where just our need system, the need to breathe, to live, to love, all these things is all there. And so when I talk about the primal brain, this is what people need to realize the person is responding with. So an example I use is, let's say, for example, I'm standing in my living room, and I look out, and I see somebody coming in my yard. What is one of the first responses that you think I might go through? Do you kind of look like, who is that? What are they doing out there, right? And so because the logic and reasoning in my brain works, I go, oh, well, if I put my glasses on anyway, it's like, oh, that's the girl guide delivering those chocolate cookies that I love. That's the newspaper boy. And so that's the difference. I'm able to process that information and figure out, and therefore I will respond accordingly. So a person with dementia, though, might have trouble coming up with that. Okay? So I often talk to staff about recognizing that. So now, like anybody else, we like to tell stories. So I said that this would be through a person-centered lens. So it's not my story. But instead, what we have for you... This is a 15-minute short clip. It's a story called Ex Memoria. Has anybody seen this video clip before? I'm counting on that you haven't. But if you have, it'll be a good opportunity to revisit it. And so I'll just sort of explain to you a little bit about what the authors of this video tried to do. And so we're going to look at a story of Eva and her interactions with staff, other elders, and family while she lives in a care home. And this was based on a true story in a way of a person that used to visit their grandmother in care. And so what it happens is it boldly forces us, the author says, to look at Eva's reality as she moves in and out of the momentary, the half-remembered, and the partly imagined. And so Eva is a woman in her late 70s, and she's of Jewish descent, and she was living in Poland, and she has a dementia. And the one thing that I'd like to give you a word of caution about is that viewers may be uncomfortable having to focus on her face throughout the duration of this clip. What I want you to do is to fully appreciate her experience. So you'll have to put away all those tasks and things that you want to think about today. The things that you've got to do. You've got to put them all aside and really focus on her. And you have to be truly present in this moment. And I think that what Liz talks about, the therapeutic use of self, this is where we're truly present in a moment trying to understand her experiences. So we're going to watch the video in short clips. So we're going to show you a couple of minutes, have a little bit of dialogue or some moment of reflection, both to think about what you think she's experiencing and then to reflect on your own thought and the meaning of her behaviors. So, so what might be Eva's perception of what was going on, where she was, and what was happening in her world? Okay, so thinking about prison or captured or who knows, right? So what do you think motivated her to get up from the wheelchair and to leave the area? So you think about that. And one of the things that I encourage you to think about here is what is the potential of her being called an eloper, right? And the potential for restraints, okay? She's now put in her seatbelt because, okay? So thinking about those things. But if you think about what motivated her, it helps you to understand. So again, thinking back to the personal care piece, you know, would she be labeled resistive to care? Okay. So here it asks you, what do you think she wanted the male caregiver to do? Okay. Okay, so really thinking about, you know, because you know her personal history. You saw the front part of the video clip, so it gave you a sense of who she is and what her background is and where she came from. So you know that, but other people won't. They'll just see her in the moment. So what is person-centered about that male caregiver's approach? Okay, so he connected with her where she's at now, okay? And so I know a lot of staff will tell me, I don't have time for this, you know, but we need to think about that, and that's the piece that I'm going to talk about next, you know. So here's just a couple of slides for you to sort of look at. Traumatic experiences and unresolved conflicts. The present may be seen through the experiences from the distant past. They make use of those memories to make sense of the present. Okay? And so the memories may mirror, sorry, I've not coordinated here. Maybe I run out of time with those slides. Okay, so can you get to, yeah, it's, okay, so the last couple of slides, just to conclude, because I know it is time for break, and this information, my understanding is it will be available on the website, but really looking at the climate of safety for both, it's quite complicated, and it requires a system approach, and anybody that ever talks to me, I always say, it's complicated, because it really is. And so what we look at is that the person remains inside, the patient, client, whatever you want to call, you know, the individual, okay? So focus on the remaining abilities and what the person can do. And no matter what stage of the dementia they're at, there's always that internal need to be successful. And we must not accept behavior problems as normal. And this is work by Kim Warhol in the States. And I think it's very relevant and timely. So. Are we good? Okay. Okay, so we're up to here. So I'm going to quickly go over these. I wish I had more time to discuss them. Oh, I got 5? Okay, that's fast. Wow. Okay, now I can slow down. Leaders are critical, okay? And I think, Elizabeth, anybody else has mentioned this. We really need those leaders, and you can look at them in lots of different ways. We look at the power of one. We really need to find those champions, and I think the peer mentoring type of programs are really what we need to do. We need to really focus on those teachable moments, because they know as educators, we come in, we give them education, we leave. So we really need to find those mentors and those leaders. Do an education needs assessment and action plan, and I think that we have a really fragmented approach to things. It's whatever coming up the latest, and I think facilities and people should really think about coming up with a plan, and I offer you here a link to what they call the Dementia Education Needs Assessment. So again, that'll be available for you. I think it's really important that we do a more coordinated approach. Okay, so assessments are a priority, and we're going to talk a little bit later about the GPEP model and how we can use that for care planning, if you will. And the care plans, as people are mentioning, those are living documents that tell the person's story. Okay, they really tell the person's story, and there's lots of good ones out there that put it in the person first. And so we need to give the RCAs permission to stop, look, listen, and evaluate. I think part of our challenge is always that we teach them about the tasks and we tell them that they don't have to do certain things, but they need to hear it from us, that it's okay to do that, and here's what we're going to do to help you meet that person's need. It sounds easy, I know, and I don't know if you thought there was going to be something different, but to really focus on these. Supporting the RCAs and in partnering with family, because some of the literature that I looked at, of course, they talk about how there's that conflict between what the families want and what the RCAs think that realistically the person might need or what they can offer. So we really need to support them. They feel under-supported a lot of times by nurses and other people. Listen to the RCAs and report and follow up what we do. So, again, in the video clips that we show you for the WorkSafe, it talks about reporting it to somebody else. But what people often say is nobody ever tells me what we do with that. So with that information. So, oops, I must have hit a blackout button. And so diffusing the incidences, I think, are really important. And I know for many of the crisis prevention I do, that's a really key piece. Again, they never really know what happens. But we really need to work on helping them resolve conflicts. And part of that's the communication with the elder in care. Okay, so here, don't just process the paperwork, focus on the person. And I mean that too because of the incident reports, okay? And then again, because of the person that comes into care. Really take a look at the person, not the paperwork. Carefully analyzing staff's intentions, values, and beliefs. And a lot of things I read, it really talks about we need to figure out if we're all on the same page, because my values and beliefs could be quite different from yours and what elder care is all about. So we need to look at that, and I don't think anybody would be surprised when I say we need to be proactive. And so finally, some of the things we need to take a look at is routines. And an example that Liz brought up about the systems, and I can think of a time even consulting around behaviours, and one of the issues was a person spitting into a cup, and this was a real challenge for people. But the problem wasn't really about spitting in the cup, because that's not such a bad thing. But in fact, the worry was that the cups don't always come back clean. So we had to work on then the kitchen part of it and ensuring cups are clean, and then it's okay to do those things. So really looking at the system. Routines are often very dated, very outdated, so you need to really look at that. And part of that is reviewing the policies and procedures, looking at your moving in, and the staff orientations are really key. Because if you could actually give somebody permission to just go sit in a dining room or just stand back and watch, wouldn't that be a lot different than teaching them how to get the laundry done, how to get this person done, how to get meal on, how to get them toileted, all those kind of things. So what if we had an orientation that gave them permission to just sit and observe? I don't know. Think about it. How are your orientations done now? And I always talk to people about staff vigilance is really important. And I know that Dr. Drance mentioned about we need more staff to do it. But I find some places are really doing a good job at just using your staff wisely to make sure that you do watch what's going on. And again, it's about what is it? Is it about the task, or I'm getting my orange card, which means I'm out of here. So safety first and foremost always. And so just your reflections is, what would it take to change the approach to responsive behaviors in your organization? So what can I do today to create that climate of safety for people with dementia and their professional caregivers? And that's really all I have to say. So thank you for being here.